Hey, Michelle.
Hello, hello. How are you? We're just
I'm doing
grooving on
well.
into the music, our groovy music for Lead to Soar.
Yeah, I love it. It's impossible not to smile when you hear it.
It is. It is.
All
All
right.
right.
So tell us about our theme this month. So, inside a career that soars, we get a theme every month, and it kind of serves to set the groundwork for things we're going to talk about in coaching and networking and workshops. So, we just got into May. What is it this month?
For this month, it is the language of power, and and specifically around how women can use powerful language and specifically language of power to advance their careers. And it's interesting because I've just been on a networking event this morning already, and made some observations, and know that this language that we use is just so important in the way that we describe ourselves, the way we describe the work that we do, the way that we describe our accomplishments, so on and so forth. So we're talking all about power with a capital P this month.
Yeah, and in Susan Colantuno's book, which of course is one of our main references inside a career that soars, No Ceiling, No Walls by Susan Colantuno, there's an entire chapter on the language of power, and she wrote, you must be able to demonstrate your business strategic and financial acumen by using the language of power. And there's numerous contexts where you might use the language of power. So, like you just talked about, there's when you're introducing yourself, perhaps in a networking setting. There's when you need to describe your accomplishments, which we talked
Mm-hmm.
about that in the politics episode of Lead to Soar that's going to come out later. You won't want to miss that one.
Yep.
And making decisions, pitching an idea, setting team expectations. These are all cases where somebody might want to use the language of power. So, Michelle, let's make it a little more granular for any of these areas where you want to use the language of power. Let's give an example of maybe something that's not using the language of power, and then how you could shift it to be using the language of power.
Well, I'm going to ground this in the context of our networking session that's coming up in a career that soars this week. So we get all of our members together once a month for a networking, facilitated networking, to practice the skills of strategic networking. And part of that is to give two particular either questions, challenges, or discussion points for breakout rooms. So the first, and our members know about this already, there are no gotchas or surprises, so they've already had the comms, but the first one, or the first opportunity to practice using the language of power, is by introducing themselves so who are you, what do you do, what do you love, etc. But how do you introduce yourself and what you do without using your job title? And there's a really great, there are a number of great examples in Susan's book. And the first one I look at is I could say, well, I'll use my own. I'm a consultant. So people, oh, all right, then that's interesting. So I say, I'm not a consultant. I say, I am a person who helps organisations close their leadership gender gap. And I help women navigate so that they can have a career, navigate systems so that they can have a career that soars. So my official, I guess, title, and I don't have a role title because I have my own businesses, is, I guess you could say, I'm a workplace gender equality consultant. That's interesting. Sometimes the gender equality bit might make people go, oh, that's interesting. But when I say I help organisations close the leadership gender gap, people go, oh, really? That's okay. Tell me more. So it's short. It's a descriptor of the outcomes that I create for organisations or the organisation. So another example in Susan's book is, you could say, I'm an accountant, or you could consider saying, I deliver financial information to help business leaders create sound business decisions. I don't know, that sounds pretty interesting to me. And that is using the language of power. And the language of power is talking about business outcomes and weaving that through all of your language, how you describe yourself, how you describe the work, your work product, as you call it, Mel, what you do, and how you generate outcomes for the organisation. And that's going to segue me to the next point, which is how, and one of the things that I often ask women to say is, what's one thing that you're really proud of? You're not allowed to say, oh, this is not very good, or this is only a small thing, but no dissembling, no diminishing. You've got to say, I am proud of accomplishment, insert accomplishment here. When you feel awkward about self-promotion, it may be because you're not using the language of power, which is, I'm very proud of the work that I do for one of my clients, which has increased the membership of site management teams from 10% to 50% by women. That's it. I'm really proud of that work that I do, but I've talked about the outcomes, and it's not about, oh, I'm just a fabulous person, look at me. No, I'm saying I'm proud of the work that I do because it's achieved this. So for listeners, watchers right now and later, what are you proud of and what outcome did it create? And talk about that. Perhaps that can be your call to action for this week.
Right. And, this touches on something we discuss so frequently in A Career That Soars and on the Lead to Soar podcast, which is you have to understand how your work contributes to whatever business, strategic, or financial goals that the organization has. And that's important, not just for doing your job well, but also being able to move up. So that's another context where it's come up in our discussions is it's not enough to just sit here and do your job well. You've also got to understand how it contributes to where your organization is going.
100%. And we were talking about this yesterday when we did some recording for Lead to Soar, and it's just so important that people, so the stakeholders to your role, understand what it is that you're doing and those outcomes. So it's really, if you're leading people, your team, bring them in. How do we connect the dots? Am I a lemming that just goes to work every day and or am I looking for greater meaning and purpose in what it is that I do every day? Help your team create that meaning and purpose by saying, look at, if we're working for this organisation that has all of these goals, and many organisations, and it's interesting, I've just got off as I said, an event talking about profit for purpose. So purpose-led organisations who are really taking their ESG, so environmental, social and governance obligations, as well as corporate social responsibility, taking that very seriously. Find those and find out how your work contributes to those goals. So finding greater meaning, helping stakeholders such as suppliers or customers know that greater purpose. So talking about your work and the outcomes that you're creating, the impact that you're having is incredibly important. So, and using the language of power is critical for that. So it's, and the language of power is the language of outcomes.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's our theme for this month, using the language of power in your career. We're doing some exploration of that inside A Career That Soars. We'd love to have you join us in there. So if you are a career woman and you need some support, you're looking to network, you can find us at acareerthatsoars.com. Anything else you want to share, Michelle?
No, as I said, I've just already been networking this morning and taking some of my own medicine about being able to use the language of power, introduce yourself, make yourself visible, create connections, strategic connections. So yeah, I guess it's very, very front of mind, because I do really admire women when I can say, I actually get who you are and what you bring, simply by what you've said to me in about 20 seconds, rather than I'm a blah, blah, blah. So there are a couple of women on the call that I went, yeah, you really nailed it. Really nailed it. So hugely
awesome.
important. And they're memorable to me. So I'm about to go and do some LinkedIn connecting and stalking. So in
excellent.
a nice way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I'll add that the first time that I went through this exercise was in a career that soars quite a while ago, and I did not get it the first time. The first time I tried, I understood conceptually that okay, I'm trying to get to these descriptions of the outcomes that I help create, and I had this like super long windbag answer to that. And you've got to start somewhere, right? So
100%.
it's a skill. You can do it. It'll take some practice, and yeah, we'd love to help you.
Mm. And it does. And it's like anything else. Write everything out and then whittle it down. For any of you who are authors, and I'm not, apart from my own thoughts, but if you've ever thought about a book, the book editors on listening or watching will be going, yeah, you've got to have a lot of stuff and you condense it down and refine it. And it's the same with your introduction, whether it's your introduction that sits at the top of your CV, your LinkedIn profile, or the ones that you give verbally on in the various forums that you're in. But like everything, there is no substitute for practice. Sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
So come and see us in A Career That Soars. But yeah, we're talking about powerful language this month. So important for women who really want to reach their full potential.
Yep. Awesome. All right.
All right,
Thank
Mel.
you, Michelle. We'll see
I
you
shall
all
see you
next week.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.